Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. One of the perks about having 4 kids that you know about is actually getting a direct line to the big man up north. And this year, he wants you to know the best gift that you can give someone is the gift of Mint Mobile's unlimited wireless for $15 a month. Now, you don't even need to wrap it. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
When you check out at the pharmacy, you see the journey from idea to medicine, thanks to our intellectual property system, or IP for short. IP safeguards inventions, like a new way to prevent seizures or lower cholesterol. And IP supports competition from other brands, then lower cost generics, which are 90% of prescriptions filled in the US. Innovation, competition, lower costs, thanks to IP. Learn more at phrma.org/IP works wonders.
Hey, What Next listeners. During this holiday week, we are airing a little counter-programming over here at What Next. Shows about culture and entertainment that we loved and might have gotten lost in the shuffle over the past few months. Today, we are taking you back to April. That's when the WNBA draft had just taken place. And a whole lot of people were wondering why women's basketball players were getting paid so little. Last week, downtown Brooklyn was a party.
All right, I don't know if you guys can hear this, the energy. We are live at the WNBA draft. There's just so much going on.
Right in the center of town, at the Brooklyn Academy of Music, fans of the WNBA were lining up to see their new favorite basketball players go pro.
I have chills. Right now, I have legitimately chills, so how are you feeling?
The very best rookies, women like Iowa's Caitlin Clark and LSU's Angel Reese, they had just wrapped up the NCAA finals, and they came here dressed to the nines and ready to celebrate.
And you said from a really, really young age, your dream was always to be in the WNBA. You're hours from that moment. What is going on in your head right now?
I think I'm just excited, honestly. It almost doesn't feel real in a way. I think it all comes so fast.
Sports writer Lindsay Gibbs says after years of the WNBA draft being staged in Nike stores or cramped studio spaces, this celebration felt proper.
And so it was quite literally buzzing.
The number one pick here did not surprise anyone.
The Indiana Fever select Caitlin Clark, University of Iowa.
Obviously, we knew Caitlin Clark was going to be the number 1 overall pick to the Indiana Fever, but I think you still want to see that moment actually happen, right? It was exciting for it to be official, for this passing of the torch to kind of happen in real time.
But after the draft was over, Lindsay went online. That's where plenty of people were noting what the WNBA's bright new stars were about to get paid. Take Caitlin Clark, the darling of March Madness. Her starting salary is about $76,000 a year. Teacher salary for a superstar is wild, wrote one commentator. She'd be better off working a 9 to 5, wrote another. Even President Biden weighed in, taking to Twitter to opine that even if you're the best, women are not paid their fair share. All of this professed shock. It almost made Lindsay laugh.
I mean, 2.5 million people, 2.45 million people watch the draft. That is a lot of eyeballs. And a lot of these people are coming to the WNBA for the first time. So it's the first time they're realizing how few roster spots there are, how the salary structure works.
There's just 144 players, right?
There's just 144 players. There's 12 teams, 12 roster spots. And honestly, a lot of teams, because of salary issues, will only keep 11 players on their roster.
The thing that I think is interesting about this conversation is I think you'd agree that women in the WNBA are paid too little.
Yeah.
But the conversation about it in this context seems so off to you.
Yeah, because it became a way to laugh and almost make a mockery out of this league that these players have been putting their blood, sweat, and tears into for 25 years. even though these players are getting paid too little, this was still a dream come true moment for all of them. And ultimately, I know, even though I don't like where the conversation is going, ultimately, it's a good thing that more people are becoming aware of this and that more people are outraged by it, and that there's going to be more pressure on the league, on the owners, and on the partners of the WNBA to fix this, to get the salaries up.
Today on the show, what's been missing from the debate about salaries in the WNBA? And why it's going to take more than one superstar to fix the league. I'm Mary Harris. You're listening to What Next? Stick around.
Planned Parenthood Federation of America exists so that all people can get access to the sexual and reproductive care and education they need to make informed decisions about their health. More than 2 million patients a year rely on the services Planned Parenthood health centers provide, like STI testing and treatment, birth control, gender-affirming care, abortion, cancer screenings, and so much more. Right now, all across the country, reproductive health care and rights are under attack from public officials who are out of step with the will of the vast majority of Americans. The constitutional right to abortion, control of our bodies, and the health care we need has been stolen from us. And now politicians in 47 states, yes, 47, have introduced bills that would block people from getting the sexual and reproductive care they need. Planned Parenthood knows that equitable access to health care, including safe, legal abortion, is a human right. Right now, Planned Parenthood needs your help to protect access to health care. Donate today by visiting plannedparenthood.org/protect.
Support comes from USA for UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency. This winter, your gift to USA for UNHCR will make all the difference. As temperatures drop, your generosity brings critical relief to those forced to flee and facing winter far from home. Your gift to UNHCR gives core relief items like food, blankets, shelter, and fuel for heaters. These life-saving essentials are quickly transported to warehouses around the globe, ready to be delivered by UNHCR's dedicated teams. It's a race against time to provide more than just the basics for those in need. UNHCR's swift response, fueled by your support, ensures refugees and displaced people receive life-saving aid, helping them survive the harshest conditions. UNHCR is committed to using every dollar wisely and turning your compassion into action. Help those in need stay warm and safe. Your gift is matched for a limited time. Give now at unrefugees.org/winter.
Okay, let's lay out the dollars and cents of the WNBA draft. And we can talk about Caitlin Clark just because she was the number one pick. Her 4-year contract is going to be worth $338,000. But you compare that to the guy who's the number one draft pick for the NBA in 2023. His 4-year contract is worth $55 million. It's like a breathtaking disparity.
It's a breathtaking disparity.
Is it fair of me to make that comparison, though? Like, do you make that comparison?
I think it's a good starting point for the discussion. Do you know what I mean? But it's by no means like there's a lot more nuance to it than that. You know, of course, the NBA has been around for 50 years longer. The NBA has turned itself into a money printing machine. But, you know, I think it's good because when you look at the ratings and, you know, you start looking at team valuations, you see that like there's not necessarily like 150 times more interest in the NBA than the WNBA, right? Like if you look at ratings, like it's like, well, maybe there's like 10 times more or 12 times more, right? But the difference that we're looking at is like 150 times more. And I haven't done the exact math, but so it is so exaggerated that I think it points out that it isn't just one form of sexism that's playing into this. It's compounded discrimination that's happened over decades.
I don't think there's any way to talk about the salary discrepancies without talking about the WNBA's contract. Because like the NBA, the women have a union. It puts certain restrictions in place when it comes to pay. But can you explain that a little bit? Like, how does the contract shape what the women take home at the end of the day?
Yeah, so through the collective bargaining agreement, they set a salary cap and they set minimum payments for rookies, for veterans. They set maximum payments for the top players. And, you know, what happened is the players fought really hard for this contract in 2020. They opted out of their previous collective bargaining agreement. They spent a year and a half negotiating and were able to, you know, increase the salary cap by about 30 to 40%. And top salaries for the players almost doubled. Before the max contract a WNBA player could get was around $100,000, and now it's around $215,000.
So real changes. They get apartments too, right?
Yeah, and they get housing.
They get maternity leave, paid maternity leave.
Paid maternity leave. You know, rookies in 2019 were only making $44,000. And now they're making at least $64,000 to, if you're a top draft pick like Caitlin Clark, around $72,000.
So what we're seeing now, it seems out of step because of the comparison to the NBA. But actually, what it is it just doesn't reflect the phenomenal growth we've seen in the last couple of years in the WNBA. And this contract was like, oh, big achievement 4 years ago. And now it's like, maybe we have a while to go.
Exactly. The growth has outpaced the contract, which is ultimately a good thing for the negotiations for the next contract. They're going to be able to opt out of this next contract at the end of this year. It's very much expected that they will opt out. And we could be talking about doubling or even tripling the salary caps at that point, you know? There is a real acknowledgement that women's sports are financially worth something at this point. And this was not the case just 5 years ago.
Okay, but I do kind of want to go even further back to talk about, like, why are we here now? Because I'm old, right? Like, I remember when the WNBA started, and there was so much excitement about it.
So we are moments away, and from this historic occasion. This is really awesome. I have talked to a lot of people that have come in, and a lot of basketball people. There is so much excitement. You almost feel like you're playing. Everybody is so fired up about this game.
And then it seemed like the excitement fizzled, but I'm not sure why. Like, I'm not sure why it's taken this long to get to this place for the WNBA.
Yeah, it can be frustrating to think back on and talk about. And it's tough because there's both excuses and explanations. And sometimes those, are one in the same, you feel like. But I think the way I see it is, the league, there was all the success in the first couple of years. There was a huge investment from the NBA, from partners. These players were getting exposure. They were on television. They were in commercials. They were on Martin. They were, everywhere. And they had cultural cachet. But I think what NBA owners, because at that time, it was only NBA owners could own WNBA teams. And they weren't making all their money back fast enough because sports are a long-term investment, right? You have to spend a lot of money to make money.
So they have this like cash machine on one hand with their NBA team, and then they have this other thing that needs some investment to reach the cash machine level. And they're like, this isn't working.
And after a few years when they weren't, back in the green on their balance sheets, you got a lot of cold feet. And because we'd never seen sustainability in women's professional sports before, it was blamed on the women. And you saw, you have to remember what the financial situation was like in this country around in the early 2000s, right? A bunch of rich people lost a lot of money very quickly. And the NBA wasn't even in the greatest financial situation. So you had a lot of teams there. And Cleveland had a team, the Cleveland Rockers. And When LeBron James was drafted to the Cavaliers, the owner who owned both the Rockers and the Cavaliers decided that with LeBron James coming in, they just needed to focus fully on their men's team, on the NBA team, and got rid of the WNBA team. And I think having so many league teams fold in the early 2000s, having to go from, 16 teams back down to, 12 and having to fire that many people and deal with so much uncertainty.
It creates a narrative.
It creates a narrative, and it creates also a lot of trauma within the WNBA and the NBA itself, right? That gets blamed on the players and on the product when really these are just business calculations.
The players themselves seem to have been really hurt by all of this. Like retired WNBA star Sue Bird went on Fresh Air recently. And it was a really good interview. And she had this moment where she talked about this disconnect between women as sports stars and why they don't get their fair share. And she said, society loves to give young girls and young women opportunity and promote that and support it. But when they become women, it feels a little less supported. And she went on to say, this league, we're Black, we're women, we're gay, and those are groups that are held back in our society. And she didn't think it was a coincidence that that the WNBA had these troubles when the league is made up of marginalized groups. I'm really curious what you think about that perspective.
I think Sue Bird knows what she's talking about. I mean, and if you look at society as a whole, there are no models of promoting and marketing powerful, athletic Black queer women, right? Those are not things that anyone is used to doing. And marketing is based on trends, and marketing and advertising dollars are based on what people are comfortable with and what people know. And so absolutely, racism and sexism and homophobia have created this barrier that has held the league back. And when you think about sports, sports are power, right? You're ultimately, giving these people cachet and cultural power. And there's a real discomfort to giving that power, that lasting power, to women, and especially to Black and to queer women. And so what that resulted in is trying to keep players in a box, right? So trying to market them as more feminine than they really were, not reaching out to LGBTQ fans because the league was uncomfortable being so popular with that demographic.
So they weren't serving their base.
They weren't serving their base. And it really backfired because when you lose your base, there's nothing to build on top of.
A lot of people have actually compared this moment to an NBA moment in the 80s where Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, the NBA was not in a great place, but having these players elevated the whole sport and set it up to become what it is now. And so do you think a player like Caitlin Clark, do you think that's her future? Do you think that that's what's about to happen here?
I do. I mean, I'm not predicting that she'll go on to have Michael Jordan or Larry Bird's career necessarily. We don't know. It's too early to know. But the way she has captured the imagination of the casual fan, it's because of her playing style. It's because of her personality. It's because of, I think she's from the Midwest, she's white. And it's because of her talent, breaking all these records, and her charisma. And also because she came up at the perfect time where the women's basketball, college basketball, was already starting to get on TV more. So she was getting more exposure. All of these things coalesced, and the way she's driving ratings and driving interest is going to lift up the whole league because it's not just her, right?
It's a team sport.
Basketball is the ultimate team sport. And I feel so confident in the quality of the WNBA product right now, in where so many of these teams are and in these players. The power and cachet that she has amassed is going to dissipate to everyone.
After the break, what would it mean for Caitlin Clark to lift up everyone anyway? This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Progressive loves to help people make smart choices. That's why they offer a tool called Auto Quote Explorer that allows you to compare your Progressive car insurance quote with rates from other companies. So you save time on the research and can enjoy savings when you choose the best rate for you. Give it a try after this episode at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today? Smart choice. Progressive loves to help people make smart choices. And that's why they offer a tool called Auto Quote Explorer that allows you to compare your Progressive car insurance quote with rates from other companies. So you can save time on the research and can enjoy savings when you choose the best rate for you. Give it a try after this episode at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states and situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
You know, Caitlin Clark is known for kind of puncturing the negative narratives around her and race. Like when she was in the finals last year for the NCAA, she and Angel Reese, another player, had this rivalry that people really wanted to make happen. And like both of them have been really good about just being like, yeah, we're competitors.
You know, Angel's tremendous player. I have nothing but respect for her. I love her game. The way she rebounds the ball, scores the ball is absolutely incredible. You know, I'm a big fan of her. And even though
I wonder if you're looking for that energy now that she's in the WNBA, because she has so much opportunity that's just hers, you know? How will you know that she's using that energy for herself, but then also for others?
Yeah, I mean, I think it remains to be seen whether she will or not, right? I mean, she's very, she definitely stood up for Angel last year and, did not fan those flames, tried to put them out a little bit. I'm just saying, like, it hasn't been showcased as much as, say, like a Paige Beckers, who's another white player, a college star. UConn talks very openly about the privileges that she's gotten as a white player.
With the light that I have now, as a white woman who leads a Black-led sport and celebrated here, I want to show a light on Black women. They don't get the media coverage that they deserve.
She's comfortable addressing it directly. We haven't seen Caitlin address it directly. And I think social advocacy has become such a big part of the WNBA over the past decade. It's a lot of where it's gained its cultural power and been able to rebuild its fan base and been able to get to this point. Like, I don't think you have the success of the WNBA right now unless you have these players who have been on the forefront of issues like Black Lives Matter and LGBTQ rights and women's rights.
Part of what was interesting to me about the last week is that there was so much hemming and hawing about Caitlin Clark's contract and how it differed from the #1 NBA draft pick, et cetera, et cetera. And then a little bit later in the week, it comes out that, she has a Nike endorsement, and that's going to involve a shoe, which is huge for a basketball player. Huge, lots of money, huge honor, all this sort of stuff. And I think I could see like a couple things happening here where, like, first of all, I feel like there's a comforting kind of like, oh, we solved it. Like, she's got a shoe. So she's getting the money now. Great job. Clap, clap, clap. Of course, that doesn't do anything for the rest of the league, but okay. And then in the wake of this news, there was this image started exploding all over Twitter that was like, here are the other WNBA players with shoes. And it's all white ladies. All white ladies. And so you can look at this like one thing that happened with Caitlin Clark and see like all of these little problems in the nooks and crannies,
It's yeah, that's the thing. It's all right there, right? And, I think there's a couple things about that point. First of all, like, when we say all white ladies, it is important to point out that it's just 3. that's a ridiculously small number. And it does feel like we're fighting over crumbs, right? Instead of just like being given another cookie, you know? Like, you know, the most egregious thing is like A'ja Wilson is a 2-time MVP. She's had this long time deal with Nike. I mean, if you can't market A'ja Wilson, that's a you problem, you know? I mean, she is beautiful. She's charismatic. She is hysterical. She has so much personality.
I don't even know how I made that team. I probably made it because I was his daughter. And I was like, I'm up at Saturday mornings just sitting in this dirty ass gym with these nasty people. I was like fed up. I didn't want to swear at all.
Yeah.
And then I just saw my teammates win. And I was like, dang, I want to be a part of that. Like, they look like they having fun. I got my first look.
She's very stylish. She's a champion. I mean, you know, she was a champion in college. And she is very popular. And she is very successful on and off the court. And so it just does seem so egregious that a player who's never dribbled a ball in the WNBA, right, is going to have a shoe. And the 2-time MVP, she is the best player in the league. She's young. She's of this generation. She's winning now. She's at her peak. She is popular. The fact that she doesn't have a shoe, it's hard not to see Nike discrediting Black women, like, by doing that.
You've mentioned a couple things that are coming up that will sort of indicate to you where the WNBA is at in terms of money. Over the next year, what are you looking for to see if like the Caitlin Clark momentum is truly spreading through the league?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be looking for individual teams to be announcing more partnerships and television deals and just more, you know, money and brand, like I said, brands. I mean, we just had the Phoenix Mercury announce that they have a $3 million patch sponsor, which is like a patch that's sewn onto your kits. That's a huge deal, right? Of just a few years ago, a WNBA franchise, the Las Vegas Aces, sold for just $2 million. And now you're having a patch deal for a team worth $3 million. And this is not Caitlin Clark's team. So, like, this is not, right? Like, this is not just for the Caitlin Clark games. Like, this is to support this team as a whole. So I'm going to be looking out for more advancements like that. I'm also just going to be looking for teams, the existing teams and owners, to continue to upgrade their facilities.
Because that's an investment. It means like we're here.
That's an investment. And that shows, like, the Seattle Storm just built a new practice facility, and with it, they announced a $156 million team valuation, which, like I said, just a few years ago, Mark Davis reportedly bought the Las Vegas Aces for $2 million. And now they're saying the Seattle Storm are worth $156 million. I want to see more investments like that from the team level. Because here's the thing. When owners have more money invested in the teams, they're going to push harder for the teams to be successful.
You sound bullish, but I get the sense you still think the WNBA could mess this up.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I mean, we have decades of examples of the WNBA messing it up. I mean, the market is never overpaid for women's sports. Like, we don't see that. And there are still, the tide is changing, absolutely. But there are still, and I talk to them on a daily basis, people throughout the industry who are still having to fight tooth and nail to be able to cover women's sports within their companies and within their organizations. You know, there's a Caitlin Clark effect. Absolutely. I don't want to discount it because it feels like lightning in a bottle almost. Like, it's just this special electric charge that's being given to everything. But this was building before her. The foundation has to be strong. It cannot be about one person.
Lindsay, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Lindsay Gibbs is the author and founder of Power Plays. She calls it a no BS newsletter about women's sports. Check it out. A little update here at the end. It was a big season for the WNBA. The last finals game in October, where the New York Liberty defeated the Minnesota Lynx, was the most watched WNBA game in 25 years, with over 3.3 million viewers. Shortly afterwards, the players opted out of their collective bargaining agreement, hoping to negotiate higher salaries after their record-breaking season. And in the months since we taped this episode, 3 Black players, Asia Wilson, Angel Reese, and Sydney Colson, finally got shoe deals. And that's the show. If you are a fan of what we're doing here at What Next, the best way to support us is to join our membership program. It's known as Slate Plus. Go on over to slate.com/whatnextplus to find out more. What Next is produced by Paige Osburn, Elena Schwartz, Rob Gunther, Anna Phillips, and Madeline Ducharme. We are led by Alicia Montgomery with a little help from Susan Matthews. Ben Richmond is the Senior Director of Podcast Operations here at Slate, and I'm Mary Harris. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you back here next time.
When you're part of a military family, you understand sacrifice and support. At American Public University, we honor your dedication by extending our military tuition savings to your extended family. Parents, spouses, legal partners, siblings, and dependents all qualify for APU's preferred military rate of just $250 per credit hour for undergraduate and master's level programs. American Public University. Value for the whole family. Learn more at apu.apus.edu/military.